yeah.
We're like a Socratic seminar now.
I thought I could do this on my desktop, but no. So like, I'm like, where do I put my phone? I don't know.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this is so awesome. Now you'll feel like the center of attention.
Layer on top of books. If I layer it on the books we need to use today, then I'm screwed, right? I mean,
Oh, right. Yeah, I've got mine.
No,
I've got mine too.
I'm up here with nothing. I've got like my entire workstation is downstairs. I'm locked up in the bedroom, like with the husband's
I'm in my
computer.
It's okay.
I'm winging it. I'm raw dogging this live.
Closed the door and I said, husband, keep the dog quiet. Ha ha. Ha 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 ha.
So funny.
And yeah, we'll see.
I do not promise kids will be quiet.
I make no promises. He's
My
wild.
dog was just
Exactly.
around my feet,
And he's not happy that
Stuff
Mama closed the door in his face. So I was like,
Uh-oh.
sorry. And he's like,
Sorry, buddy.
Mom, I want to go live. I could go viral.
Well, all are welcome. If anybody runs in, like dog, kid, anybody, totally
I
welcome.
warned. I said be sleeping in the yard if you open the door, unless it's a dire emergency.
Right? How funny.
Oh.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so here we are. So does everybody here like Save the Cat? I mean, do you guys all use it?
I am a fan of the categorizing and the pacing methods that it provides.
See, I mix it though with something else. So I'm not like strict Save the Cat. I kind of do this weird thing with, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Lisa Cron and Story Genius.
I do know Story Genius.
That's how I didn't just tap into a story emotion, but was able to keep my first novel like, okay, in Julia's review, she mentioned that I was able to like leave fluff behind and just dial into
the details.
where the details were. That's Story Genius. That's
Wait, I'm going to write that down, because the way you do that is something I feel like I'm lacking in my writing. And it's something that I felt like I was not just in the book, but in layers and layers and layers of the book, because your details were so specific to what was going on and not just a detail for detail's sake.
Right. Yes. And that's partly good editing too, because I just have, tell my editors, like, just make sure that I'm keeping this, like, I even showed her some of my notes from Lisa's stuff, her worksheets, and be like, just make sure that all looks like this. And she like, got it. So, it worked out just fine. But yeah, it's a way of just following the thread of a character's emotions. So it's like external happens that causes cause effect, right? But that's not what's important. What matters is what your character thinks about what just happened. What is their internal response? It matters to them because of whatever reason that because you've been layering in their needs, desires, their misbeliefs, all of that. So now you know how they're going to rise to that occasion. They make a decision based upon their feelings as to what just happened. And that causes and then they do something.
Right.
So I'm
all based upon how they're feeling in the moment.
What did you say it's called?
It's called, here, I'm going to just show you. It's underneath my book.
Ooh.
It's called Story Genius.
Okay.
It's by Lisa Cron. She has another one called Wired for Story, but this is the one that tells you how to do what you do. The other one is more the psychology behind, like, why this makes a bestseller, why. Like she talks about like 50 Shades of Grey and how it's a horribly written book, but people just bought it like it was candy.
Same thing with Twilight, if you ask me.
Yeah. Well, yes, but I'm just giving an example of like crummy, but it did very, very well. She's laughing all the way to the bank.
So
I want to laugh all the way to the bank.
I'm going to be the black sheep here, but I actually liked Twilight. So here's the thing.
Yeah.
I read Twilight like maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I didn't read it when it first came out, so I was not part of the whole Twilight like fandom or anything. In fact, I was reading Twilight just because I reached a point where I'm like, okay, well, I really need to raise my pop culture awareness and just like read these popular books that everyone else read like a decade ago that I just missed the boat on. I was living under a rock. And so I read it. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed Twilight and I enjoyed Midnight Sun. I actually thought Midnight Sun was better than the original series. I loved hearing from Edward's perspective. And I know like the problems that people have with it, but I just thought it was good. It was entertaining. It was a fresh idea, sparkly vampires. I mean, like people laugh at it, but that's a twist. That's a twist right there.
I like all that stuff. It was just her sentence structures and stuff like that sometimes I thought.
Actually, in Midnight Sun, Edward describes their first kiss so beautifully. He says, what kind of alchemy is this, that the touch of lips should be so much more than the touch of fingers?
How is it that you know that off the top of your head?
Just because it's beautiful.
Stuck with her.
Like, think about it, like your fingers touching, not a big deal, but when your lips touch, it's something different. And I just thought that was such a beautiful way to describe it. Now, of course, Edward being like a 100-year-old vampire, he should speak differently than, being
a teenager.
A teenage girl's head.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
And, like age gap and everything aside, I mean, you can, how you feel about this. But I thought they were good. And I thought that the story about how she came to be published was also great because her book was way over the word count. It should have gotten an auto reject on query. But the person who was getting the submissions was like an intern. They didn't know about the word count submission, so they just read it and they were like, wow, this is great, I'm going to pass it along. But if it had been a more seasoned person that got it on their desk, it never would have gotten to the agent. So that's like fate right there.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, also I do feel like Twilight gets, I don't think everything needs to be Shakespeare. I think that it's okay for things to be like light and fun and silly and even written in a very accessible way. Reading should be for everybody. It shouldn't just be for like the people who are highly literary, Sometimes we don't even need beautiful prose. We just need a fun story. So I agree. Fun story.
I still think that her writing, that Hansen's writing, what is your name? Do I just call you your last name?
Call me Kim.
Kim, okay.
Call me Kim.
Like her sentence structure and the words and the way she described things were just like on such a professional level. And I think I expected that from Twilight only because it had gone so far. And, I had it in my head kind of on a higher pillar. So I expected more from it. Well, just because I was a new author.
Right? In music, the most technically like proficient composition is not going to be the thing that's necessarily the most popular. There needs to, it's a different, it's almost like measuring against a different metric. Is this book good? Yeah. Well, I mean, good is so subjective.
Well, and also like not everything is meant to be like a literary capsule. Sometimes like Twilight knew its audience very well, and like I've never read it, but I've like done a lot of deep dive analysis on it because it is like a social cornerstone piece and a comp, from now to forevermore, a comp, right? Yeah. And like one of the things like in the analysis of it is that like it knew its audience incredibly well. It took you through that journey the way that like the audience wanted to see it happen. And then like the other benefit that I hear a lot is that you do very much see the author's growth through the novels as agree. as their writing and their craft kind of levels up, and they still manage to stay in the story of Bella and who she is without like leaving that because she's a better author now with maybe better ideas of who she should have had as a main character.
So I want to mention a plot point in Twilight, and this is a spoiler if someone doesn't know the story, but so Bella at one point, her mother she believes that her mother is abducted by a vampire, and so Bella goes to sacrifice herself. Like she goes to the ballet studio because she thinks that she can save her mother and she doesn't want Edward to be killed and she doesn't want her mother to be killed. And she thinks that by sacrificing herself, she can save the person she loves and her mother. I mean, this is in Twilight. This is a major plot point in Twilight, but yet people gloss over it. But it's like the same thing that Katniss Everdeen did. I mean, she sacrificed herself for her sister, saving her sister from danger. So I think that the problem with Twilight that is in society's view of Twilight is not necessarily that the writing is bad or anything, but I really do think, and this is this is a contentious point, but I think that things that appeal to teenage girls in a heartthrob way is often looked down upon by society. Just in general, they're like, oh, teenage girls, and they like roll their eyes at them. So I think especially as YA authors, I know three of us are YA authors here. I feel like we need to almost carry the sword, right? To be like, what teenage girls like is cool. Teenage girls are cool. We were all teenage girls once.
Yes,
you know.
we were.
So I don't think that their thoughts and like ideas, things that they dream about are I think that they should be given their own space. Not that we shouldn't like criticize a piece of art. Like, yes, I mean, could Twilight be better? Absolutely. But I think that we should. I mean, Bella did sacrifice herself to save her mother. Unnecessarily, it was a trap. But still.
I find it interesting. There's a book. It's a thriller called Midnight is the Darkest Hour. And that book, the main character is obsessed with Twilight. Like, it was like her cornerstone emotional support novel as she went through like a traumatic thing in high school, and then like she's carried the romanticization of like her life and her relationship with these people like through coming back as an older adult. And like it's so fascinating because like in the book it talks about that exact thing, that like if her biggest flaw is like having the feelings appropriate for somebody her age and holding on to that meaning like through her life and seeing its significance and validating it, then like so sue her, somebody that thinks that that's not a valid thing. And like I really liked that because you see it a lot with like people criticizing like romance novels for just being about relationships, or people criticizing like something contemporary or like chick lit, or even just like saying like this is women's literature, as if women's literature isn't literature or like needs its separate piece. And like you see that so much with these categories of like trying to other books that aren't about like classic topics. And I think that that's interesting. And like, I do think it happens a lot with women's fiction, including romance, and with young adult fiction, like, because you'll always see somebody who's like very ready to throw a young adult novel, into like, trash it just because it's young adult. And so like, it's just gonna be trashy, or like, oh, it's gonna have like crummy writing or something.
You know
like,
what
you
makes
get
me
that a lot.
crazy? It makes me absolutely crazy that people are like, oh, this is written like a young adult novel. Like it's a bad thing.
Right.
Like, are you kidding me? Like, seriously.
Most of my readers are people my age.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
same.
can't seem to get it into the hands of the kids, but that's who I wrote it for. I wanted to help children, teenagers, who'd had a brush with death young like I did. And to help them go through all that crap that I went through.
Yeah.
And so, but that's not who's reading my book. It's Gen Xers who are losing their mother, their father, their husbands, parents, their aunts, their uncles, their friends from high school. I mean, it's happening. I'm almost 55, and I have too many in the heaven count that I can even care to talk about. So those are the people that are reading my book. Those are the people that are texting me, or if they know me, or emailing me, joining my mailing list to email me to tell them, why did you make me cry so hard?
Right.
But thank you, because I just lost my sister like a year ago, and I thought I was doing good until I read your book, and then I realized I had all this stuff I had to work through. And thank you, complete strangers, doing this.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's not the kids reading it, but it's a YA book. My teenage main character is 17.
Yeah. I think adults absolutely can and should and do enjoy YA fiction. I mean, we all went through that period in our life, trial by fire, basically. And we can see ourselves back and identify with those characters, even though we're not in that stage in our lives.
Exactly. It's so relatable.
Yeah, absolutely.
I always think of like when I read a young adult novel, and I read a fair amount of them since I write teens, right? That that novel is like a story for my young adult self, and like the part of me that will always be like digging into that part of my life, because like I go back and I revisit those years of my life as I'm building my current self over and over and over again. Like coming of age stories resonate with me every single time I'm going through some sort of major life transition, because like the young adult experience is our cornerstone for like major transitions in life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said that so beautifully.
Yeah, I love that.
These people that are saying hello.
Yeah, I know, it's so good to see so many people jumping in.
I'm so engrossed in our conversation, like the world has dwindled. It's just us four.
I have a question for all of you, and we can like, I don't know, we can like go in a row, but like, when did you get in, like, get introduced to Save the Cat? Have you used it to plot a novel yet? And if you use an editor and use the Save the Cat method, do you share that with your editor, or is it just your cornerstone piece? Like, I kind of want to know like how Save the Cat is impacting you and how you're using it in your process right now. And I don't know who wants to answer that first.
Somebody go first.
We're all pointing at you,
I
Candice.
was putting Candice.
It was your idea, Candice.
Okay, no pressure. I didn't know when people were pointing if sometimes like on spaces on Twitter, like everybody's pictures, like everyone's thing is in a different order.
place.
So,
Yeah.
but I see that they're not here, so I'm top right. Okay, so Save the Cat. I first got introduced to it very recently. I think Julia, you were the first person to mention it to me. I think
Did
you
I?
were, but a while ago, and I hadn't started it. But it was kind of like the bug was in my ear. And then I first got this Save the Cat Writes novel, and I absolutely loved it. Just love, love, love. And then I got the original Save the Cat, which I also read and also loved. But I have to say, honestly, I liked this one better. I love the breakdowns, like the in-depth breakdowns for the story genres. And it was entertaining. I mean, she just writes fun. Like it was educational and entertaining. It was awesome. So I am currently plotting my first book, which is the sequel to Mortal Tether. Hold on. Shameless plug. There it is. Mortal Tether.
Yay.
So when I first was reading Save the Cat Writes novel, I was going through Mortal Tether because the whole point of Save the Cat is that there are common beats in storytelling that make a story effective. Now, it doesn't have to follow the Save the Cat structure. Save the Cat is just calling it out. It's just saying, like, Lord of the Rings didn't follow Save the Cat. Save the Cat didn't exist. But yet, you can put the Save the Cat structure and see where each of the things happens in the story. So that's the same thing. So I was thinking back to Mortal Tether. I'm like, what parts did I absolutely hit? What parts did I miss? Where was my pacing off? Like, like Jill, I think you were saying that one thing you like about it is the pacing, like how the Save the Cat structure is. So I see that, and I use Scrivener. Love Scrivener. Love it. Love it.
I couldn't write without it.
Love Scrivener. So it allows you to see where you're on the story. So of course I have my like target goal in my head of how many words I want. And then I can see roughly where I am to be like, okay, I see at this percentage, I should be moving on to the next beat. So like, I better start thinking about it. Now, don't get bogged down too much, because obviously when I edit, some things are going to get shorter, some things are going to get longer, but it gives me like a little bit of a roadmap to follow to say, okay, now the audience is probably going to want to see a shift around now. So, I love it. I did my first novel that I wrote, which is not Mortal Tether. It is a novel that I did not publish. And it was 194,000 words, a YA fantasy. Like, word count, I did not understand word count back in 2016. So, yeah, it was a disaster. But fun journey that I went on, but it was long. After that, I did a hybrid of Pants plot, but I still didn't use any structure. And now with my third complete book, the sequel to Mortal Tether, I will be using a structure for the first time. So it's been an evolution from complete discovery writing to now structure. It's a totally different thing. Like, now I thought I would hate structure, because obviously I'm the type of person that will just sit and just like let my brain just go. I thought I would despise like putting myself in that box, but actually being in that box has a bit of freedom. You know, because it's like, ooh, it's almost like a challenge to say, I need to be creative in this space. Like, it just makes your brain work differently. It's like a puzzle to solve almost. So my brain still likes it. I am having a lot of fun. So, but I'll get back to you after it's done with. I can't tell you about the editor because I didn't use an editor. I edited Mortal Tether myself. And that was the reason why it took me so long to publish. Well, one of the reasons. Because I did complete edits. I don't know how many times. I lost track. 20.
Your book feels professionally done. I am
you.
so impressed. Girl, wow.
Appreciate that.
Damn.
Yeah, so I mean, I know that so Mortal Tether took so long for me to write because the editing took me so long, and it was like Jill is a professional editor. I gotta say, editing is like the bane of my existence. Like, I hate it with the fire of a thousand suns.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it even when I'm doing self-edits on my own work before I send it off to my editor. Story structure editing, like copy editing, like leave me alone. I'm sending it to a professional for that. But like story editing, structure editing, line editing, like where all those components come together to make the story like have its own life and be its own thing that works. Like, oh my God, like I obsess over it. I sit there and I like do breakdowns of like classic novels just to be like, oh my God, do you see where all the pieces work together? It's beautiful. I'm obsessed.
You do what?
I do. I'll like take a book that everybody knows and everybody loves, and I'll be like, I'm gonna put this through the story grid method. I'm gonna put this through the 4-act structure. I'm gonna like pull all the beats out of it. And like for me, part of it is practice, like making sure that I am following like what works in storytelling. So like, you know, that's craft, that's practice. But the part is I just love doing it. I love it.
So I think that part of it sounds fun. You know, the idea of like dissecting a story and seeing what makes it awesome. But I think that really the line edits that kills me. Like, because it's just, you know, a slog. Like, because eventually your eyes are not reading what's actually on the page anymore. Like, even when I use like the text to speech to listen to it, like I feel like you know, after a certain time, your brain just starts to listen to the story, not the words on the page. So I'm like, gosh darn it, I've read this paragraph 1,000 times, and the word "to" was spelled wrong. I didn't see it.
I have a tip for that.
What?
So many people, I have a tip for that. So many people will focus on line editing and copy editing, wording level edits very early on because it's like they're afraid to share that clunkily written paragraph, for instance, right? Don't do that. Let it go. Let it be trashy or clunky, or even like have a bracket of insert later. When you're doing your story structure level edits, you absolutely just want to focus on, would this happen in the story? Would this character react this way? Because you're feeling like after you have a draft, you're just making sure that everything is happening when it's supposed to happen and working when it's supposed to work. And once you have that, you'll feel it. You'll feel it when you go through the story, and there will be a natural change into, oh, that thing I couldn't figure out, that plot point that like I felt like I was forcing, it's got to be this and connected to this because I need that beat transition to happen with this break right here.
Yeah.
But if you're line editing and focusing on that's clunky writing right there, or like I just don't know if this character would say it or these two characters sound exactly alike type of things, if you do that, you're going to get lost in the weeds because you're supposed to be looking at, is the story clicking? Am I looking at this plot point connecting to this plot point, or are we dragging on drinking coffee and talking for too long?
Yeah. Besides, you could spend a half an hour making a sentence beautiful, and then that sentence get cut. Ultimately.
Oh yeah, right. What about you, Kim?
What about me?
When did you start using Save the Cat, Hear About It, stuff like that?
Well, halfway through everything that was, I was doing this weird pantsy try this thing. And it was just not coming together. And I had a friend that was an editor that was acting more like a coach at that point in time, because I was like, I don't even think I can do this, because I had tried pantsing novels before. We're talking for years. I could do anything short story and less, easy. Didn't like the idea. Structure, bite me. I had one editor tell me to take a book that I had done before everything that was, and it was such a detailed thing she wanted that by the time I finished, I felt like I'd written the whole thing already, and there was no life. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. So I set it aside. Maybe one day I'll go through, we're talking spiral notebooks of hand scratch from years ago. Maybe I'll go clean it up and run it through Save the Cat and Story Genius. But I was about third draft in when my son got me for my birthday. Oh. Because I'd been bitching about, like, I was talking about dinner, right? What kind of conversation does mom have? Oh, she's just cranky again because all this book crap is not working, and I can't figure out why not. I know I can write. Why is this not coming together? Why can't I tell a story that's longer than, a short? Why? And he went Googling and he found this on Amazon. Oh, nice. And I read it and went,
that's love right there.
Yeah, and I applied it to like the back half of my book that was just falling apart and fixed it. And then I found Lisa Cron and applied that and made it even deeper. And so it was kind of like a halfway through the end of the first novel. I started all of this.
Bless you.
From scratch. Yeah, bless you. From scratch when I started my new novel that I'm working on now. And oh my God. So I don't use Scrivener. I use Milanote. But I've got, so it's like, kind of like how Scrivener, you can have things that are real, not linear, but visual.
Right.
Yeah. I'm finding I really resonate to that. And I stick all of my Lisa Cron and Save the Cat stuff in there. And just beat. And I section everything out so that I know, like, okay, this is my setup. And I know all the points. I make a little note card that says these are all the things I need to hit. And then I just play with the ideas based on the emotion. Line things up. I'm almost done. Right. I think I'll finish, I'm hoping, the end of September. That's kind of like my goal, but I've got a lot of out-of-town company coming, so it might be October. But yeah, this has gone way faster. It took me over a year to do the first books, and this has been 3. I started in June, July, August, September. Oh, wow. Yeah. It'll be like 3-4 months by the time I'm done. I'm so stoked.
Somebody's telling me over here that she's halfway, J.C. Fuller is halfway through reading Moral Tether.
That's about where That's about where I'm at too.
Oh my gosh, I'm like I love her so
40,
much.
45%.
I adore her videos.
Have you guys seen Alibi? It was such a good book, and I finally got the second one loaded on my Kindle, and I just got to get through a couple others, and then it's next. So
I just finished her third book. It's so good. But yeah, I'm about 45% through Mortal Tether right now.
Thank you.
I've been slow because I've been doing the audio review for Into the Deadlands for my book, and so it's just like reading in my spare time.
Juggle.
But,
congratulations on the audiobook. That's awesome.
Yeah. I have audiobooks. Like, it's a huge victory, and I'm about to have 2 audiobooks.
That's amazing.
Nice. Yeah, that is amazing.
So after you both go through your experience of how you got started with Save the Cat, I would actually like to kind of back up and talk about your books. But we'll go with the how you got into story structure. I know both of you have a bit of a different idea on it. So whoever wants to go first. You can do rock, paper, scissors.
Okay, sure. Okay. So I published my first novel in 2020. And before that, like, I had like very classic education on story plotting. So like closer to like the 4-act structure and closer to like following the hero's journey. And the nice thing about this is that once you get involved into other types of story structure, you'll see that every single method works, and you can plug one method into another method almost seamlessly. But yeah, so like I had very traditional, and I found a really good developmental editor that like walked me through rewriting more than 30% of my book without that many tears. And And so I published that, and then I came across the story grid method. And the story grid method heavily references Save the Cat, and how Save the Cat is related to the 3-act and the 4-act structure, and that Save the Cat is like, like absolutely like the golden standard when it comes to breaking down where things should be in a story. And so I was like, well, then obviously I got to pick up Save the Cat. So I went through Save the Cat the first time in 2020, and then like didn't forget about it, but like kind of only referenced pieces of it. But from that moment, like when I started actually getting my next novel ready to publish, and I've got like 6 or 7 novels that aren't published right now that are just sitting in my trunk. Like every single one of them uses the elements of Save the Cat and Story Grid, and now like the 5-sentence method, which like I fell in love with last year. And yeah, absolutely. Like my editor doesn't use those necessarily, like he doesn't identify the process that he uses for the story structure, but like anytime he's like, he's like, oh, that's amazing, I was hoping there'd be a turn here soon and you nailed it. And it's like it feels good to be like hitting those beats more correctly. Like I did very minimal rewriting for Into the Deadlands when I like finished my self-edits and sent it to my developmental editor, compared to the rewrites and the redrafting that I did for Due North working with my editor. Like that was like 30% of the beginning of the book and more in the middle and the end. And Into the Deadlands was like, put more characterization here, change the way that this scene changes to this scene, and then just suddenly we were done. And he was like, you did something really incredible here. And I was like, but like it went so fast compared to the first one. I was ready to be crying for months. And so I noticed that like learning story structure and like having not just one story structure, but like the language and the feel for it made a huge difference in the speed of writing, the quality of writing, and like how quickly you turn your idea of a story into its finished product that you're very proud of.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have less edits going forward into the second draft than I think I'm going to be like draft 1.5, if not 2 at this point when I'm done, just because of having that structure in place that I didn't have before, and I was going a little too loose and wild. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. When you rein yourself in, you have purpose, and you know all the points you're supposed to hit, and you know how it's going to show up in the scene, then you get to play with expressions and body language and thoughts in their head, and you can layer that deeper later and just get something on the page. But I was my husband wanted to hear, what did you write today? You've got the silly grin on your face all day. What did you do? Like, oh, scenes just went well. And he goes, well, read it to me. And I went, first draft crap. But he goes, read it to me. And I did. And he goes, that was really good. And so, you're just saying that. He goes, no. Did I ever tell you that when you wrote your first one? I went, well, you smiled because you know it was bad. And I mean, he's like, no, I mean it. He goes, that was really good. He goes, how did you manage to get, I mean, this is your first shot at it, right? You went back and rewrote it, didn't you? I'm not allowing myself to do that. I want to get done. Yeah. So yeah, that floored me. I wasn't kind of expecting it. And then I went back later and reread it myself again. Went, you know what? He's right. I've got the heart in there from Story Genius. I've got this beat lined out. It flows from here to here. It's perfect. I think it's going to be an easy dev edit. That's my favorite edit is always the second pass through, because my first one, I don't really know who the characters really are until I get to the very end. It's like I know my main character. I'm hitting her wrong in a lot of, and I know it. I'll even go back and go, I write here, I know she's supposed to do this, and I just make a note. You know, go back and make a note. I know one of the sub-characters the best. He's just the funnest thing to write, and he's come to life in so many ways. But I've got to do it with 3 more, so I just know it's going to go back and layer through. But I don't think it's going to be all that hard to do, because I think I'll have the structure from Save the Cat in place, and it's just going through and making sure that the characters' responses to one another are proper through Story Genius.
Your second book is a different genre than your first book. Do you feel that the genre change has changed, like your approach to the book?
It's kind of different. I mean, it's still YA. At first I was going to do it adult fantasy, but the more the characters kept talking, I'm like, no, that's no adult would say this. I'm still stuck in Prue's head from the other story. So I'm like, okay, no. She's going to be like 18. I'll just make her a slightly older teenager and that'll work. And, but there's still I mean, my other novel has fantasy elements in it. The dreams, there's magical realism. The dreams are kind of a dark fantasy. They turn from sweet, happy, lushy things to nightmares. And then there's a happily ever after. So, so it's similar but different. They're not dreaming. My character has been portally transported to a new world. So that the world building is more expansive than the little teeny tiny apartment that Davis had. But that was still world building, just on a different level. So the mindset's actually been a lot the same. And that's the structure I'm following is stuff based on, I did for fantasy, but for both of them. Because I wanted to make sure that the dream chapters sang just as loudly as Prue's awake days in everything it was. But this new one, Smoke and Mirrors, is a trilogy. It's going to take me a while to hop through it. But it's not that much different. It's going to be more humorous than my other book, but I'm still using Cron's method to tap into those emotions that, plague all of us. That feeling of being lost and displaced and unsure of yourself in this world just as much as you were in the one you left and you thought this was going to be a good thing, but no, it's not. So you have to face your inner thing that's not your outer. So it's very, very similar in many ways, believe it or not. So, yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah, I'm having a lot of fun.
Nice.
So,
that's
Julia.
the best part when you're
Yeah,
having
Julia, you procrastinated as long as you can. Tell us.
You're on.
So I feel like it's funny because every interview that I have done with people, I always ask them, how long have you been writing? And everybody's like, oh my gosh, since I was in junior high or since I was, in grade school. And I didn't ever write, ever until I wrote this book. So I don't have, talk about imposter syndrome. It's just, it's huge for me because I don't know what I'm doing. And when I was writing my book, I had gotten the idea to write a book because I was reading Beach Read by Emily Henry. And in her book, it's two authors that are kind of burnt out and sick of their genres. And it's like enemies to lovers. And so they decide to switch genres. He's going to write something that's, not men's circle jerk fiction or whatever. And she's going to write something that's not completely romance. And through the book, they're explaining how to write it. Like, oh, this would be the promise of the premise scene. And this would be, and I was like, when I was decided to write the book, I was kind of going by that book on how to write a book. And so, but I would be like, sitting there going, what's a 4X structure? Like I'd be still writing, but looking up some of these things because I didn't have any idea what I was doing. So yeah, as it turns out, I did the first one on a 3-act structure, but I turned, the middle act into 2 acts because I had it all on a wall. Like my room looked like it had a big wall on it and I could put all the Post-it notes and the stuff so I could see it on more visual than on a piece of paper. And I got done with that. I sent it to an editor because I knew I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. And so, will they kick you off on TikTok for swearing?
I don't know. I got a potty mouth, so we'll find out.
It's like, yeah. So it was okay. It's just I didn't hit any of the romance beats, and so she made me read Romancing the Beat, which is similar.
That is a spectacular resource.
Right. It's similar. So
Romancing the Beat is great.
Right. After I got the edits back from my book, it was all very good and encouraging, but it was also like, I didn't know that my second POV had to have his own trajectory, his own problems, his own everything. I just thought he was like a trophy to the main character, but he really had to have his own stuff. And I was missing a lot. Plus I was missing everybody kept saying to me, she has a car and a job. Why doesn't she leave the cult? So I had to figure out what were the brainwashed things that I was going through that I could not. I had to kind of get in touch with that. Like, well, what did he say? How did he do? How did he behave? And then I had to figure out how to do that. And
you nailed that.
I think,
yes,
in the final, nailed it.
Yeah, that was tricky.
I was thinking about it.
It resonated with me so deeply. It was so relatable to my own different but similar
right.
experiences.
Right.
You did that. I mean, it had me in tears. I mean,
thank you.
that crap in my life happened when I was 20 and I'm in my 50s.
Right,
It was
right.
like
And
I
it
was
sticks
reading
with
it
you.
yesterday, right
Yeah,
alongside
it
Jules.
does.
You know, I was right back
Right.
there. You know, Brian is my Frank, and
Right.
I
Oh,
was just there.
Everybody has
So
a Frank
good.
almost, you know, if it's not quite
Yes.
as serious or, you know, not that a cult is the most serious level, really. I mean, there are women who are in just regular marriages that are more trapped than I was in a cult, so to speak. But yeah, it was hard to kind of get all those things. My brain just told me, well, that would take a writer to fix that. And I don't have that writer experience. And so that's when I started digging into, like, how do I write a book, you know? And so, yeah, so I got the Save the Cat. I liked it. There are things about it I still don't understand. So then I got Save the Cat writes the thing, and then Save the Cat strikes back, and then then I got the workbook.
All the
There's a
cats.
Save the Cat, yeah. And then
Crazy
Jessica
cat lady.
Brody,
Yeah, it's
right?
like crazy cat
Jessica
lady.
Brody has an actual website that then goes through every single, like, she has a class right now on Save the Cat plots a young adult novel.
Oh, cool.
I
Lisa
thought that was
Kwan's
funny
got a
since y'all
class
were
on Creative
like
Live.
specifically on that. Yeah. So, you know, there are still parts of it that are a mystery to me. The log line, oh, fuck. The log line. And I don't understand some of the, like, I don't know if
Ask
my
AI to
story
help
is
with that.
I
oh,
would say
right?
also, if you do beta readers, or like at any stage that you let somebody else read it, don't make them do a log line, but have them, like I say, in your words, what was this book about?
Just about, oh, that's a good
Because
idea.
you know what your story is about, but your list of what the story is about is this long.
Right.
And then you're
Right.
just going to go through and you're going to take their one or two sentences of what it's about, and you're going to be like, how did you do that better than me? And it's because they
Right.
didn't have this list. But you're going to take, you know, whoever reads it and those, and you're going to compare it to your notes, and then you're going to look at your genre and what those blurbs are and what people say those books are about. And then you're going to put together the log line. So, like, yes, you want, like, a very general log line that's like you couldn't tell me what the details of your story are
Right.
necessarily from it when you set out, because you want to know your goal, right? You need to know your character's goals in going through this journey. But, like, when you make that log line about your story and your characters and the journey that they went on, you need that outside view looking in addition to your big list, or you're going to pick the wrong emotional point that's important to you, but isn't like that main one that's coming through.
Like, I really love that. Thank you.
Can we go, because I feel like the log line is the elevator pitch for the book, right? So Julia, I feel like yours is like, got to be something like an exotic dancer in a cult must break free, must find herself to break free. Must break free so she can find herself and find love, or something like that, or find love and herself, herself at the end. So
a sweetheart of a stripper
realizes
she's in a cult
and herself.
Right. Has to face her fears of anxiety disorders to be able to go the next step, or what, you know. I always see, whenever I think of the log line, it's always the guy who's on the movie trailers voice from the 80s. It's his voice.
Yeah, but I feel like you know, I feel like some stories are really difficult to do a log line. I feel like yours, the points of it are so clear, the hook for the book. So I don't know, maybe we can all come up with something to help Julia, like,
I need to read this
I
one.
wrote something like, I can't remember. I mean, I have it on something, but yeah, it's more like an ad that I was running for the book. And it was kind of about like, but God, it's funny that I can't remember something that I wrote like 1,000 times. Wait until you get in your 50s. It's just horrible.
I feel you, Julia.
Like you poop and go, did I wipe? I can't remember. I can't remember anything, right? Yeah, it's like I have a new book. You know, now I'm writing a trilogy also. And it's like there's a part of me, like the more I try to understand some of the foundations of writing, the more I feel like it takes away some of my creativity. But I'm also so afraid that I'm going to get to the end of my book and realize that the hardest part for me is the revising and the doing all that. It's like I don't want to get there and go, fuck, I didn't do what I was, I didn't make a pipe to flow through. And now I have the swimming pool worth of information that I can't remember. I have to read it like 10 times. I have to listen to it 10 times just so that I can go, okay, this part's here, this part's there. Let's take this, put this. It's like having a fucked up ball of yarn the size of a truck that you're trying to whittle down.
Like, do you have a plot structure document that you fill out, whether you're doing it in Scrivener, like not just the corkboard, not just your storyboard, but like, do you have a document where you have those pieces like laid out and like you're filling in, this is where it is in my story?
I have an outline, and it does kind of, like, I took my idea and I put it into ChatGPT because it's better at it. And I said, could you break this down into like 14 chapters and run it through Save the Cat and make sure I don't miss any of the beats? And it's a romance. So could you add the romance, the beats in? And, I did all that. So I have kind of an idea, but it's 3 books. Are you kidding? That takes a lot of brains. I'm sitting in a hotel room in Iowa with like 17,000 pounds of corn sweat out there. The humidity's like 90%. The air conditioner is right under my feet, right? So I can't turn it on. So I'm just in like this stifling room. And that's why I'm sweating so much, because I'm just sitting in a hot box.
We're just going to call it a glow and say you're glowing. And it looks good.
I'm just on fire today.
my hair's dripping off. Yeah, no, it's all good.
So what my editor told me to do, because I was panicking about the 3 novel thing. Right. I did go ahead and move forward, and I'm all plotted out from A to Z because I felt I needed to see what was happening, because some things in 3 changed what was happening in 1.
Right.
Before I even put words on the paper. So
that's a good
I want to
idea.
get clear on that. But then she says, when you finish book 1 and you have it ready for me, whatever that means, whatever stage you're at, stop writing and do it. And we were going to go through and get book 1 done before you start book 2. Because every novel needs to stand alone. Yeah. You are writing 3 books about the same person doing the same stuff with the same, but each one is all by itself. So don't get hung up on, oh my God, I got to do 3. How do I get there? Just focus on the first. Get her done. I've got a great editor. We got a great editor. So, you've got help. So remember that you're not supposed to be great at all of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if
writing a book was never supposed to be a one-person endeavor. You can't, if you're the only one like doing it, it's just not gonna, because like even Candice, who like did her self-editing, there's no way that she made it through without outsourcing input and talking things through with people. Like you have like you can look readers. You hire beta readers, even talking to your friends or like venting to somebody, I'm doing this part of my story, like all of that is sourcing other people in order to write the story, because it can't just be you at any stage.
No, because you can't.
It's also funny how, when I talk to people about it, I get these, I'm like, oh, never mind, I got an idea. Just talking out loud helps sometimes that thing to click in. But I'm kind of jealous of people that say, I've read the book probably 20 times. I took her classes, I did all this stuff, and it's still like, I get it as a construct, but it is not solid enough in my brain to actually have it as a map.
Try Lisa Cron. See what,
that's why
give it a try. You can find her stuff free online. You don't have to buy the book. If you Google Lisa Cron worksheets, there are blogs that tell you how to fill out the 4 quadrants and what that looks like and how to do it. But if you want to jump down the rabbit hole, she's got a couple books. She's got a blog site where she blogs. She's got a creative live class you can take. I've done all the takes. She's expensive.
I just would like this book to be, I'd like them to be better than the one that I just did, and I would like it to be easier, just a little easier, because that one, that was like passing a kidney stone.
Right.
It was hard, it was hard. I would like it to get easier. And I feel like the only way I can make it easier is so much
easier than the first one was between those two. You just have to find what works for you. And if not that, then try that 5-sentence thing or the snowflake or. Keep sticking with it.
You can listen to them on audio too.
Right. And I'm such an audio person, kidney stone. Reese is laughing at me. Can you guys see your thing? I think like only the people that are in your room, like we can't read each other's, right?
I don't know, because I can see JC's comment about like
Can you
struggling
maybe?
to read the plotting books, and
Oh,
Well, maybe if you're friends with them.
oh,
I
oh,
find
maybe.
that
Yes.
when it comes to reading books,
Uh-huh.
like reading technical novels, I buy the physical copy, I listen to
Hmm.
the audio, and then if something really important happens in the audio, I pause it until I have a moment to go pull up that book and like I'll tab it. Like I'm a
Oh,
big
smart.
annotator, so
Yeah.
but like
Right.
that way I'm getting the information in my head. I'm leaving myself a bookmark in case I need to go back to it,
Hmm.
and then I'm just moving through. And I know that that's buying the book twice, but like
Who
when it
cares,
comes to
right?
these
It's
resources
cheaper than, yeah.
where you're pulling it over and over and over again and you just need it as a resource, like it's nonfiction. Listen to it at 3 times speed and like let the stuff that isn't speaking to you glaze through your ears until all of a sudden they're
It
saying something and you're like,
clicks.
oh, I do want to know about that, and slow it
Right.
down and listen to that part. And then go
Right.
back to it when you say, oh my gosh, I don't know about this. Like, because if you have the physical book, then
Hmm.
you can navigate through the audiobook just fine. Like, oh, where is that part about the all is lost moment? Oh, it's
Yeah.
chapter
Hmm.
53. And then on your audio, just go to chapter 53 and listen to it. Like,
I really thought
I'll,
the 4 act structure, it made sense to me. You know, here we are. Here's where we are. This happens. This makes my
mhm.
character do this. That, goes well for a minute and then it gets all jacked up and then she just dies. It's always a she because I wrote romance, and then she does this and that, then it really blows up. And then she has to really dig deep and, miraculously all kinds of magical things happen and huzzah,
all is
it worked
lost
out.
is like my favorite moment. Like,
I like there's definitely a before and after. One of the things that I love, and I think I get mixed up where they come from sometimes, but I think it's from the story grid method, but it's probably from all of them, is the reminder that the villain is
Hmm.
driving the middle of the story. So
I'm going to
like
write that down.
whatever they're against, your character is not necessarily not taking control of your life, but they're very reactionary to the things to the things that are in the way of their happily ever after or their victory at the end. The villain is the roadblocks and those obstacles and overcome, and you have these
Hmm.
like rising actions of like going through a thing and recovering in levity and going through a thing and
yeah.
recovering in levity. So like, like that high point of like, if you're writing a romance, that first kiss almost
Hmm.
always drops immediately down into the next major conflict.
Yeah.
And, like they kissed. Her father will never approve.
Yeah.
Right.
She doesn't care what her dad thinks. She has a new job in another state. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, or like, if it's a thriller, it's like they find the missing kid and the next day the father is dead. Like you know what I mean? Like it's always like that twist of like
Yeah.
taking all of those highs and all that victory and all of that hope and twisting it into the next things that's driving the action of the story.
I think that's
And
exactly why I love it so much because
and
it's a signifier of like you have the all is lost, you have the dark night of the soul. So now
mhm,
it's that moment on a
mhm,
roller coaster where you shift and all of a sudden you're weightless for 1 second and then you're
Right.
like
mhm,
boom. You
yeah.
know,
Hmm.
I love
And
it.
like that all is lost moment, like I love it so much because like they've it's your artificial end to the story. Like how like everybody always says that in a horror there's the monster's not dead. It's kind of a version of that because
Hmm.
like the story is over and your hero has lost.
Yeah.
And in real life
It's
that's where the
coming. Right.
story ends, right? Like
Yeah.
that's your the end because there's no way out. There's no solution to the problem. They tried and they failed, and they don't see the agency of themselves being able to make it through. And like you've got to sell it for that moment when they realize that they gained the skills and the gifts to finally overcome, to escape the cult and find their happily ever after,
Right.
to set up a permanent home and rebuild, to solve the mystery, whatever it is. Like, you can't have that feel the way it's supposed to feel if you don't have them feel defeated like the end of the story at that all is lost moment.
Yeah, that's the thing about writing, right? You have to you make these characters, you love them, but you have to punish them.
Punish them,
Do
right?
bad things to them.
That's hard for me.
It reminds me, what's her name? Elizabeth, hold on.
Gilbert?
What's her name? Elizabeth, Wheatley. Elizabeth Wheatley. The Book Goblin. Do you follow her now?
Yes, she's funny.
Have you
now.
have you seen that? Oh my gosh, Jill, you gotta follow her. Elizabeth Wheatley. Just search the Book Goblin.
Okay.
So she's an author. She writes fantasy, but she's made this character called the Book Goblin that is so funny. So funny. One of the Book Goblin ones, she's reading a book, and she's like at the end, and Book Goblin's like crying, and she comes over and she's like, "Book Goblin, why are you crying?" And she's like, "Everyone is happy. The main characters are together. Like everything is going great." And so she's like, "So what's the problem?" And she's like, "There's 100 pages left."
Yeah. It's so spot on.
It killed me. Oh, it's so good. Yep. Oh, it's so funny.
You know this shit's gonna hit the fan.
Oh yeah,
Right.
yeah. And then she's like, "Well, you can just stop reading there and pretend it's the end." And she's like, "I can't."
Right. I have to know.
Yeah, you gotta punish yourself too. So,
Oh my gosh.
but actually, that's funny because we all identify with that because we all feel it because that's how stories are, right? Because if everything is going great but there's 100 pages left, you know that things are no longer going to go great because it's this roller coaster that we're talking about, which is why. Because if everything was great for 100 pages, then it might get a little tedious, but it never is. Yeah,
It never is. What about theme? Do you guys struggle with theme?
yeah.
I don't
would
worry
say I
about
do.
about themes in the first draft because if I've got a basic outline and I know some big ideas, I get to the end, and when I do my first reread after I trunk it and let it set, and when I do my first reread, that's where I start looking at what is speaking to me and does it match my vision for the story, and that's when I pick out and decide and make a point to note out those themes
I'll take
other than a big
stab
idea.
I'll take a stab at themes stated kind of loosely because I'm a completist and I like to have it all nice and neat when I'm going through my thing and not leave something out and go, why did I forget that? But I know that I'll probably go change it when I get through. Because I was pretty solid on everything that was because that was a story about death. So that theme of, family and what that means, like analyzing grief as a whole and how everyone approaches it differently, yet profoundly. It's the same, but we're unique. Was so much easier than what I'm doing now. And I'm not really sure what my theme is. So I'm not worried about it yet, but I've kind of put the spot where Gramps told my character something that I don't know if it's going to stick as I'm going through. I'm not really seeing it pattern up. So we'll see. We'll see.
Right.
But it's lovely just knowing that that's an easy fix. It's something that can go back and layer in later. So I agree. I'm trying not to worry about it right now. There's enough to get on the page.
And so do you do the theme stated in the book? Like in my book, I did the theme stated and it was on a fortune cookie.
That is the most unique thing I've ever heard. It's so cool. Yeah,
Like
I remember
the
that
antidote,
moment.
right, to fear is
Yes.
trusting yourself.
Yes.
That, I don't even know if that's a theme. That was just kind of what she was having to go through. She had to learn how to trust herself.
Yeah,
That's
exactly
that's the part of the log line. That was it.
Yeah.
She has to learn to trust herself so she can be in a life without the cult. Yeah, I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah, actually, that's a good place to pull your lag line from. Totally.
From the theme part of it,
from
yeah.
the theme, because that's where that heart is. I mean, that is the soul of your book, right? Is that theme or themes, plural, because books don't have just one usually.
Yeah,
right,
There
right.
can be multiple. So yeah, that's definitely a solid one to explore.
I'm losing the sun. I was looking out into a parking lot. That was my point of view. That's why I kept waving at people because people kept walking by and like, look, that crazy lady is. What is that?
That's my damn cell
Did you guys
phone.
hear that?
Yes,
Oh,
that's
okay.
my,
I'm like,
that ha ha
that was the
text
second
message
time.
from Minions. Yeah, they live in my phone. That's probably my mom texting me. So, but how's your life going?
I'm
It's
busy
not
doing
over.
it. Oh, wait.
I should have told her
Right.
it was like way later. No, I didn't.
I think we should
Right.
do another one of these.
I
think so, too.
This is so awesome. I feel like we barely scratched the surface, and you know, it's already been slightly over an hour. So
I would
yeah,
like-
let's do
This
another one.
is a crazy thought, but everyone here is drafting something.
Yeah.
Everyone here is looking for themes of this, right? What if we did like a round robin swap? Not necessarily for a next live, but like I would early read any one of your books, and
Oh, that's awesome.
like we all kind of have this like idea of like we are picking out these things and we're using the same toolbox, and it could be a really cool
Right.
experience of us being able to talk with like, you know, like not authority but like knowledge of each other's works and the goals,
Right.
and we can even talk about those pieces as you know as examples. They don't have to be
Right.
finished works, and a lot of times like talking about and using works over time, like, oh, you remember when I wrote this and she was devastated about it, and like I thought that that was going to be the driving force that sent her in this other direction, and it turned out that it worked so much better for it to be her choice and for her to go over there on her own. And we could talk about, yeah, you know, it was really interesting to see how that transformed over time, kind of thing.
Right.
Like,
So how far along are you guys?
I
Like
hit
you guys are
the-
writing full
hold on.
novels. I'm just
In
writing
front
a
of my
novella.
desktop. I can tell you what word count I'm hitting right now. Give me 2 seconds. 62,727 words.
I'm probably gonna need till like December, I would say, is when I think
Yeah,
I'll,
me too.
I'll be in.
this
in
isn't
place.
like if we keep joining and discussing in any matter, even not regularly, like this could be a long-term project. I
Ooh, I like
currently
that.
need to draft something new. The only novel that I'm
Oh, hi,
actively
Paula.
working on right now is in early reader hands, and so like it's like in that stage right before like my developmental editor and I go through the dark night of the soul.
Nice.
So I either have to decide I'm going to write something brand new or pull something old, like an old first draft from a trunk anyway. But like,
You know what? So Julia, you said you're working on a novella.
Yeah, trilogy novella.
Nice. So I'm actually working on something else in tandem with book two. For my newsletter, I'm writing bonus material that takes place in the world of Mortal Tether, but
Oh, nice.
but so that way I have stuff that I can release before, like between books, because it takes me a while to write. So I need
right, me
something so
too.
that people don't forget about me completely or forget about the story. So yeah, I've been writing like these mini stories essentially. So that would be a fun thing, because I think that even if you're writing a mini story, it still has to have a structure, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
For sure.
So maybe something like that.
Yeah, I would love to
mess with
write
a
like
novel.
a shoot off little story from my first book, like maybe Brad or Ripley's
Yeah.
point of view, right? One of the other characters' point of view, like what is James getting himself into with this chick?
Yeah. Or even something that happened slightly before or like a year after, you know? People like that stuff. I mean, I would love to know what happened to your characters, like, you know, maybe even how she ended up getting into the cult. I mean, because we see her in it, but we don't know how
right.
she got in. That would be like really cool to see.
That would be a dark story.
Yeah. Or even like
we can write
after,
the
you know,
dark story.
visit them in the bar to
Right.
see like what's going on, and maybe like use that as the basis for like another character. I mean,
Right.
because you've started to create a community and a world, so you could follow the other characters and then
Yes,
just
right.
expand on it. Yeah.
Yeah. Lucy in my book, I don't know if you remember her. Kim might remember, because she's the girl who comes out of stuff on the stage when all of them are like, Frank is out there and all of them are like, don't go back out there, don't go out there.
Right.
And a chick comes off the stage and she says, oh my God, are we being raided again? that chick is the new main character for the novellas trilogy.
That's awesome.
Oh,
So there will still be deep
nice.
stripping in the books, but yeah, she's going to go to Mexico City. It's still a lot of my life because, of course, I went to Mexico City and was a stripper in a third world country. Why not?
So because there's a crossover there, are you going to bill it as a series?
The 3 novellas are going to be a series, but they'll be connected. They'll be standalone connected. Like the trilogy is a series, but it is not a series. Right. January and Ripley are in the second book, but only as guests. Like they come in or they're at the beginning, but so it's connected to the first book, but they are not a series. The first and the 3 are not a series. The 3 are. Yeah,
I wonder if because it's all in the same, you like totally do whatever you want. This is just my marketing brain because I have marketing brain. I'm wondering if because it does take place in the same universe and there is crossover with the characters, if for the purposes of Amazon, you should maybe consider putting it in one because then when you promote book 1, you get read through with the rest.
Right.
So you might.
Yeah, I mean, I would lick the sweat off a cow's balls for marketing purposes, whatever it takes. Right.
Oh,
that's the way to do it because they are definitely, quasi-connected.
Connected, yeah.
She's not going to be a stripper the whole time, but
no.
I wonder if you could connect it through naming the universe. Like, even if you're not making it book 1, 2, 3, if you designate that universe something, then like when it says more from the author, anytime somebody's looking at your stuff, if you're promoting one book, more from the author, those books would show up there as in that universe, even though they're not part of the series. I've been looking into that depending on how much more I have. My series is 4 books and a prequel, and that's all I have planned right now. And when those are complete, like there are so many interconnected stories, I could potentially write books related, but to be their own thing. And so I decided I was going to name the universe in case I decided to do that.
That's smart.
And
so
I think
what would that look like, name the universe?
So for mine, my series is called The Kara Mason Story, and there's 4 books in it. But I've named the universe, like the universe of the Kara Mason Story. It's part of the Zorobitis cycle universe. So like the Zorobitis cycle is like what I'm kind of designating the books in that universe are part of that. And so if I wanted to connect something, it'd be like the prequel I'm just calling, it's Hearts of a Vanishing City. It's prequel to the Kara Mason Story. But in the designation, I can make it set in the Zorobitis cycle universe. And that way I'm just connecting it so that down the road, if people are looking for connections or if I expand on it, it's set up so that I have these easy connection points. And it would still depend a lot on my marketing, which I don't really do. So, but eventually I'm going to, ideally. So we'll see.
So
I love the idea. We just have to come up with a name.
If the character
the stripper universe isn't going to work
throughout, you can also use the setting if it's got a similar setting. Like Alana Grace has the Newfound Lake series. So it goes by geographical
like J.C. Fuller, all her books are set in the
Rockfish Island Mystery
Series. Rockfish Island series.
Right.
So are you going to put everything else in Texas again?
No, it's all going to be, the next books are in Mexico.
Does the cult have a name?
It does, but I can't use it legally.
Well, but I mean, could you name it in the next
books won't have anything to do with the next series won't have anything to do with the cult.
Just need to find whatever the thread is.
Right.
Will they all follow
the thread is dancing.
An exotic dancer who left the cult?
Lucy's not, well, Lucy knows January and Ripley. They all know each other because they all dance at the club. It could be the Tulip universe because they all met at Tulips.
Oh, yeah.
That's the name of the strip club.
So there you go. Something with dancing.
And everybody thinks it would be flowers, but it's not those tulips.
Or is she still an exotic dancer in book 2? Lucy?
January is, but she's getting her real estate license, but she's only like in there for a smidge. And then Lucy, the next stripper, who's going to be the stripper in Mexico, and then she's going to actually end up being the international recruiter for the strip club, but she still works at that club. Mm. And then eventually she's not. She's going to become an international traveler, as we all do. That's what all us exotic dancers end up doing.
Oh, JC says, could make it something dance theoretic, the Breakaway Saga.
Ooh,
fun.
Yeah.
Something like that, right?
Like, I think that there's definitely something in there, just like something that they would use dance terminology that connects them all.
Right. And so there's also like the next series that I'm going to do is very edgy. I'm not even sure I'm going to put it under my name because I'm a little worried about it. But I could connect it to this. Yeah, I'd have to work on it, but it's going to be the cornerstone of it is sexual education through a woman who's a therapist who is very naive and doesn't understand the sexual world of like swingers and phone sex people and all this stuff, but that she thinks she can help them all. And she's the one that actually gets a lot of the help. But it's still kind of that edgy, not making those industries wrong, because there's so many brilliant people that use them and go to them and talk to them and perform in them or whatever. So it's all kind of that just on the edge thing that I would like to, if I can write them in a way that doesn't freak people out, which I think I can because of my awkward sense of humor and non-judgment of it all, I would like to also maybe pull that in too. So, but that wouldn't have much to do with dancing at all, but still kind of that whole, like, the cult song in the beginning of the book, She Sells Sanctuary. Mm-hmm. It could be the She Sells Sanctuary. And then the cult will sue me, but not that cult, the other cult.
The other cult. Good one. I love funny humor.
It all ties together somehow. I'm talking about myself too much. I'm starting to sweat.
If you want, that's easy. Amazon lets you have 3, I think. So if you wanted to stick the different pen names. So like under your KDP account, you can have different pen names. I've got 2. I have a nonfiction book I wrote under Kimberly Ray Hansen, but I don't mark it, and it's already. I probably am going to just pull it and call it like no longer available. And I don't know, it's kind of hard for me, but we'll see. We'll see. And now KR Hansen for my everything else.
Oh, right.
If I ever do anything
for marketing purposes, I'd like them to all be the same, because by that time, I'm going to be infamous or famous. So I wanted to.
And so there's that too, because you have to start all over with your marketing under a different name.
And how hard is that? I mean, can we all agree that's the hardest place of being an author is the marketing? Where's the Save the Cat How to Market book?
That's a whole other lie.
That's like a whole master's
Cats
degree.
Don't get to market themselves. They are the marketing machine. They're all over the internet. They control everything.
I have a hotel gift for you.
Beautiful.
You're welcome. All right, now what?
So I probably have to bow out, but I definitely want to do this again. So let's we'll do an email thread, and then there's so many topics I feel like we could come up with. We only scratched the surface with Save the Cat, so I feel like maybe not the next
bring
one,
that back
maybe
a
the one
little bit
after.
too.
What?
Right. Huh?
Yeah, like we could. I would love to talk about like book openings or something like that. Like how to
we could take each point, right?
Yeah.
And if we want to do this like a lot, we could break down each point and go, okay, so let's start with the opener.
Yeah.
And what does yours look like in your latest? We could even come to the table with our read the first page of whatever it is we're working on, and be like, okay, well, do you have plans to make it better or different, or is this where you're at and you need some help, or you know what I mean? We can just talk about like where did we plug in those points in that segment.
Right.
Also, a story genre I think would be a really fun one to talk about, because there's 15 that or 10 story genres I think that we can pull from. Like, what are each of our existing books? Why do we think that they fit in that genre? What other genre could they possibly be? you know,
I could genre talk for days.
nice.
And then maybe even like a marketing, like that's something everyone struggles with, right? And I've been
Everyone.
throwing spaghetti at the wall. Some things have
Yes.
stuck, and some things I should not have put my money into it. But you know, you live and you learn, and you just don't do it again the next time. But then maybe share it though with everybody on TikTok, because who doesn't need help?
Yeah.
in that?
Right.
But when
Oh,
we're the
everybody
one-show
needs help
pony,
marketing.
Yeah. But we're doing it all. We're the one-man band.
Yeah.
Reese is
So see,
asking me.
Yeah, about Save the Cat workbooks, and I know
Yes.
Candice, you have like an online template for Scrivener that you use.
Oh,
I have
it's actually
workbook.
Jessica Brody's on her website. She has a free Save the Cat Scrivener template. I think if you just Google Save the Cat Scrivener template, let me see. Save the Cat Scrivener template.
The workbook is so great. It's got this whole
it's not. It's
cut everything out.
Jen Terpstra. Just Google Save the Cat Scrivener template, and this author Jen Terpstra has a free download that you can use. It's awesome. Yeah, so just Google
might help me.
Save the Cat Scrivener template, and you can get it for free. You have
Okay.
to sign up on the newsletter.
I have taken so many notes. Wow. I feel like you guys should charge me.
As we were sitting here, when you all were saying books, I was adding them to my Goodreads TBR or my Amazon card.
Yeah, I have a little list.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, how fun. All right, I have to go too because I'm here for family reunion.
Oh.
So I have to go reunion.
And I know
Yeah.
my husband's, his desk is right behind me, and he's being very kind, not, like,
Right. He's like,
yeah,
okay.
okay. And I'm sure like he's just jonesing to get onto he likes to play video games. So that's
right.
what he unwinds after a long day at work. So
Nice.
I need to let him have some time in there, and I'm going to go read a book.
Right. And thank you everybody who came and watched us and didn't fall
This
asleep.
was
You're all awesome.
This was great, and
This was so
we
much
do
Yeah,
it
let's
again.
do
So
it again. For sure. Absolutely. Kisses.
Love you guys.
Bye, guys.
Have a wonderful
All
night.
right. Bye, guys.
You too. Bye. I don't know how to hang up. Oh, here.
Me neither.